440 1182.
So last time we discussed about file system utilities, right? Like mkdirs, cp, mv, rm directory, head, right, ls, put, right? So we discussed about the file system. Even the file system contains one more operations, right? Mount point. Here we discussed about widgets also, right? Correct. In the last class we discussed file system, but in the file system again it is divided into two types of utilities: file system utilities and mount point. So what's the usage of the mount point? So why should we create that mount point? Is it mandatory to create mount point, especially for any Azure or data lake storage or blob storage or any Amazon S3 also? So is it mandatory to create that mount point? Okay, so we'll discuss one by one mount point. So this is very, very important. But 100% will create mount point, but this is only one-time activity. Every day will not create. Moreover, this mount point activity is 90%, right? Will set up by platform team or maybe data engineers also. But this is only one-time activity. Every day will not create. But this is one-time activity. So what's the usage of the mount point, right? If you remember, we discussed about especially Azure file share system, right? Azure file share system, right? In the from the storage account, we have created one mount point for Azure file share system in your local folder, right? In your local folder, so you have created the map network drive, right? Map network drive, and you have provided the details, and you have shared the username, password details, right? So this is also nothing but a kind of your mount point only. So while you are creating, especially the map network drive from your local machine for Azure file share system. So every time I don't want to open my portal, or every time I don't want to open the shared path details, right? I want to open those details from my local folder. But logically, the folder is available in your local machine, right? But physically it is not holding any data, right? Physically it is not holding any data in your C drive or D drive or E drive, but logically you can see this Z drive or Y drive or X drive in your local machine, but physically the data is available in your Azure file share system or your shared path details, right? So the usage of the map network drive in your local machine, so kind of easy access, right? So kind of easy access, but only the logical representation in your local folder, right? In your local machine, but physically the data is available. Every time I don't want to open my portal and I don't want to open my storage account, but I want to copy the files from local to storage. So I can use the ADLS 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 from that blob, or if I read the data from that ADLS every day, I mean, should I create my access details? I mean, every day should I call my access details? Every day should I call my configuration details? Right. For example, if I want to read the data from that blob, right, blob, I should provide them my blob URI information, right, blob URI information, or I should provide my ADLS information, right, right. I should provide my ADLS information. If it is A- ADLS Gen 2, I should provide my Azure Blob file storage service. If it is ADLS, I should provide my ADL, ADL colon. If it is ADLS Gen 2, I should call out my URL ABFS double colon. If it is blob storage, alright, we should call out these URLs, right? We should call out these URLs. If I want to read the data, if I want to read the data from that blob, so the prefix is Windows Azure Storage Blob Service. If I want to call out from Azure Data Lake Storage, the complete path, ADL colon double slash. If I want to read the data from Azure Data Lake Storage Generation 2, I should call Azure Blob File Storage Service. So these prefixes are mandatory to read the data from that blob. To read the data from that blob, then I should provide the complete URL details. Write the complete URL details. Write the complete URL details I want to call out. The complete URL details I want to call out. So let me open ADLS. this is my okay. See, that is select files to upload to ADL colon, right? In case if you want to read the data from any Azure Data Lake storage, right? So we should provide this URL path details, right? We should provide this URL path details. We should provide this URL path details. But from this URL path, maybe in your all environment, in your all, I mean, like development, QA, pre-prod, production, your SAT, UAT. So these folders are common, right? These folders are common. But if you observe, right, this your storage, I mean, your Azure Data Lake storage name is different, right? But in your all environments, the name is different, right? The name is different, but the rest of the things are common, right? The rest of the things are common. For example, I'm developing one notebook from development environment, but the development that Azure Data Lake storage ADLS is different, right? That ADLS is different. But QA, right? In that QA, instead of the dev, maybe you will use that QA, right? Production, PROD, right? PROD you will use. PROD you will use. But enter your ADLS account name is different, right? Each and every environment, your ADLS account name is different because that environment wise you want to create one dedicated ADLS name. The same name you will not create into that all that environments, right? All that environments. Okay, for example, you have created explicitly this name in your development environment. Maybe you have created some 10 to 15 notebooks. 10 to 15 notebooks explicitly, you're reading the data, you're writing the data into your ADLS. Maybe you're calling out this ADL and colon details. ADL and colon details. If you want to promote this code into QA or pre-prod production, next environment, your next environment also contain the same details, right? Your next environment also contains the same details. Means so shall we modify these details if I'm promoting the data into the QA? If you're not modifying the details to, if you're not modifying the details, if you're executing this, especially code into that QA, right? Your definitely your code will fail, right? In QA also, you're calling out. Right, you're calling out a special development in the production also, right? You're calling only the development details. But for example, just me create ADL colon. For example, this is QA, this is production, this is production. In enter my all the notebooks, the path should be replaced with QA. The path should be replaced with production. Again, this is a manual activity, right? Again, this is a manual activity. But how can I overcome this issue, right? How can I overcome this issue? Maybe this path details I'm using more than 10 times in one notebook. I have the overall more than 10 notebooks are available. I have 10 notebooks are available in the development. The 10 notebooks I should promote to the QA or production. But right, then I should search right all the 10 notebooks whether what is my ADL current path. Then I have to replace, then I have to promote the code into that QA, then have to promote the code into the production. It is a time taken process, right? It is a time taken process because these folders, right? These folders are common because the same structure I want to create development QA production, all right? Because the same hierarchy I want to follow in the all the environment, but except that ADLS name, except that ADLS name, except that ADLS name. So what is that alternative? I don't want to provide complete full URL details. I don't want to provide that. I don't want to provide this complete highlighted one. From this highlighted one, I want to create one mount point. right? I want to create one mount point. If I want to create that mount point, I need one file storage system, right? For example, in your local machine, you have created the file store. I mean, especially mount point, because physically in your local machine, the file storage is available, right? The C drive or D drive, E drive. So those are the file storage. That's why I'm creating one specific drive, right? I'm creating the specific drive. On top of it, you're creating that mount point. On top of it, you're creating the mount point. But in case if I want to create that mount point, if I want to create that mount point in the Databricks, in a, especially Databricks, right? Especially in the Databricks, if I want to set up that mount point, I need one file storage, right? The file store nothing but your Databricks file system. All right, the Databricks file system. All right, but what's the usage of the mount point? The mount point, that advantage, if you are reading the data, if you are reading the data from that blob, if you are reading the data from Azure Data Lake storage, every time, all right, every time I don't want to call out my complete URL details. Right, every time if I'm reading the details, if I'm reading the data, data from blob storage or ADLS genuine urgent, no need to mention that access details, right? If it is not complete URL, what is that alternative? What is that alternative? Right, that alternative, I want to go with my relative path details. Means this highlighted one I want to replace with my Databricks file system. I want to replace with my Databricks file system. For example, let me copy this one. Let me copy this. For example, yeah, if I'm using this path details in the development environment, this highlighted one is not having any environment details, right? The slash MNT ADLS project sales landing, right? Project sales landing. If I am using this path details in my development environment, the project sales landing, right, is a common folders, especially in my development and QA and pre-prod and production, right? Only this highlighted one, this highlighted one, I'm replacing with, right? This highlighted one is equivalent to slash MNT ADLS slash MNT ADLS, right? This highlighted one information, right? I'm creating on alias slash MNT ADLS. If I'm using this path details in my notebook, if I'm promoting the code to my QA pre-prod production, right? So this QA and prod information is not available, right? This entire highlighted one, I'm creating alias equivalent to slash MNT ADLS. This highlighted one alias, right? This highlighted one, I'm creating the alias slash MNT ATLS, right? Slash each and every environment, I'm creating my complete, especially the storage account name and my root folder equivalent to one alias slash MNT ADLS or slash MNT ABC, right? I'm creating each and every environment. This name is common, right? This name is common in your development QA, prod and production. If I'm considering this path details into my development to read the data from my development ADLS and write the data to my development ADLS. In the QA also, right, in the QA also, I will create the same one. In the QA also, or production also, I will create the same ideas. Right, QA and prod. The prod. In the QA also, I will use the alias slash MNT ADLS. Production also, I will create the slash MNT ADLS. If I'm using this path details in the development in all my notebooks, happily I can promote this code to that QA without doing any code change, right? But happily the same code I can promote to that my production also without modifying that any code, without changing the my ADLS path details. If I'm creating especially this alias concept, is this alias concept, every time no need to provide your access details, right? No need to provide your complete URL details or full URL details in your code, right? Full URL details in your code. If you're providing the full URL details, right? Full URL details, again, it is a problem, right? Again, it is a problem because you're blindly promoting this code into the production. If you're mentioning in your Databricks notebooks that highlighted one, right? This code, especially, it will read and write the data into only the development. This only read and write into the QA. This it will read and write into the production. Alright, these are everything the hard coded, right? These are details are hard coded. I don't want to provide the complete full URL details. I don't want to share my access detail. I don't want to select the access detail each and every time while executing my notebooks. I want to set up only one time. I want to set up only one time that access or plus the complete URL details. The complete URL details mount point that is called that mount point. Physically, your data is available in your ADLS, but logically, you're reading the data or writing the data from. Don't want to use your access details each and every execution of your notebook, right? People will prefer to create that mount point. People will prefer to create that mount point. If you create that mount point, right? If you create that mount point, blindly you can deploy your code into all environments because your notebook is not having environment details, that your notebook is not having data lake environment details or storage account environment details. So this is only one time setup. This is only one time activity or one time setup. This is only one time. Yes, each and every environment, so we should execute mount point explicitly once you have successfully created mount point, then you can execute your notebooks. Then you can execute it. The advantage of mount point, no need to provide the complete URL details every time. No need to get your access details. If you are, providing, if you are creating your mount point, if you are setting up a mount point one time, means indirectly you have that access to your ADLS from the Databricks, right? In case if you don't want to call out complete URL details, if you want to use only the relative URL details, this is absolute path, right? This complete path, right? So this kind of your relative path. This kind of, if you're calling out this URL details in your development environment, right? Indirectly, right? Indirectly, you're calling the ADLS, right? With the help of these details in the backend. If you're executing these, especially relative path in the QA, at the backend, it is reading the data from this highlighted ADLS. Right? If you are reading the data from the production with the help of this, especially relative path in the production, the backend, it is reading the data from the production. Right? If I'm using that mount point concept, if I'm using that mount point concept, so no need to do that any code change. Right? No need to do that any code change. No need to do that any code change. Blindly, you can promote this code from development to QA to production without doing any code changes, but only you can set up that mount point to only one time activity. During that mount point setup, yes, you should provide the which ADLS you're connecting, right? Whether it is development environment, development, QA production. This is only one time setup in all the environments. Once you have successfully set up your mount point, right, then you can execute your all notebook without doing any code change, especially to read and write the data from that ADLS instead of providing the complete URL or absolute path, right? Then you can go, then you can go and use that, especially relative path details. But if you observe, but how can I create the slash MNT ADLS? How can I create the slash MNT ADLS? Right, with the help of the Databricks dbutilities.fs.mkdrs, we can create is we can create these folders into the Databricks file system. If I'm creating this folder, how this folder is relating to this highlighted path, how this slash mnt adl is relating to this highlighted one, how this here slash mnt adls is pointing to this one. But how can I set up the communication between this highlighted one? How can I create this kind of alias, right? How can I create especially the slash mnt adsl folder? If I'm creating this slash mnt adls folder, how this folder is relative or pointing to these details? That is called mount point. So we should follow some three-step process to set up that mount point, right, to blob storage or ADLS storage, to blob storage or ADLS storage. So we'll discuss one by one. This is only one-time activity, but this 100% interview question. 100 percentage will create mount point in the real time, either by platform team or data engineers. See, the Databricks file system is a distributed file system mounted into an Azure Databricks workspace and available on Azure Databricks cluster. Azure Databricks. There are two ways to read the data from any Azure storage system. Right. One is mount point. Second, directly you should provide the access details. All right. If I'm setting that mount point, right, if I'm setting that mount point at a Databricks level, not your cluster level, at workspace level, right? If you're not creating that mount point, right, the second step, if you're providing that access details, that access details are available only in your cluster. If the cluster is available, right, but each and every time you have to register your your environment details inside the cluster. If your cluster shut down, right, then you will lose that access. Again, you have to re-execute your access details. Every time you should register your environment details in the cluster. But if you set up mount point, that's only one-time activity at workspace level. Entire workspace level, you're creating into the mount point. Each and every time. No need to call out your mount point execution steps. Only one-time activity, because you're creating that mount point at workspace level. The second method at a cluster level. Every time before executing your notebook, your details you're registering inside the cluster. That is, every execution of your notebook, you should register the your access details into the cluster. But that mount point at workspace level, only that one-time activity. Once you have registered your mount point at workspace level, right? Every time no need to execute your mount point, only one-time activity. That is advantage of the mount point. All right. The advantage of the mount point allows you to mount storage objects so that you can seamlessly access data without requiring the credentials. Right, like your account key details, your SPN details, every time no need to provide, only that one time. The second advantage already discussed, right? Complete URL details, no need to provide it. Allows you to interact with your object storage using the directory and file semantics instead of the storage URLs. All right, instead of the storage URLs. So this is your storage URL, right? This is your storage URL, right? So every time no need to provide the storage URL, right? Instead of the storage URL, you will use that /mnt ADLS, then your subsequent folders, All right. Every time no need to call out this complete URL path details in your code. Instead of directly you can use this start shortcut. But this shortcut, right, you should create inside your Databricks file system. Right. So persist files to object storage, so you won't lose data after you terminate a cluster. Because if you terminate a cluster, means if you're terminating the cluster, if the cluster is not available, then you will not access to your Databricks file system. But still, your data is available in your ADLS, right? Still your data is available in ADLS. Still your data is available in ADLS. This is kind of only the logical representation, right? Only the logical representation. If your cluster is not available, then you will not execute your code, right? But still there is no harm to your data files, right? But still the files are available. The backend, your blob storage or ADLS Gen 1 or Gen 2. But to access the data, to read and write the data, instead of providing the complete URL details, right? Instead of getting access details each and every execution of your notebook, right? These two steps I want to avoid. To avoid these two steps, we'll creating that mount point. If you're creating that mount point, physically the data is not available, right? Physically the data is not available in your Databricks file system, right? For example, here I'm creating one mount point /mnt ADLS, I'm creating two folders, right? The root is MNT, the subfolder is ADLS. Physically, your Databricks file system is not holding any data, right? Only the logical representation. Only the logical representation. If a cluster terminated, still you can access the data from ADLS blob, right? You can directly log into the blob or log into the ADLS. You can see the data, all right? But only from the Databricks file system, the cluster should be available, right? To read and write, to execute any notebook without a cluster, it is not possible, right? Without a cluster, it is not possible. But still, there is no harm to your data, right? Still, there is no harm to your data because you're physically not holding your blob storage data or ADLS data into the Databricks file system. Only kind of logical representation. But we set up that mount point in our local machine for especially that Azure file share system, right? Azure file share system. We set up that mount point for Azure file share system. That's a kind of logical representation, right? Not physical representation. All right. Means if you have the proper internet connection, then only you will able to see your especially Azure file share system in your local machine. If you don't have any internet connection, it's not possible to see, right? It's not possible to see your Azure file share system. But physically, the files are not available in your local drive, right? The files are not available in your local drive, but only the logical representation. Every time, why should I open that portal? Why should I open the complete shared path details? Instead of, all right, those two activities, all right, I'm opening the details from my local machine. So kind of easy access, right? Kind of the same methodology, right? The same methodology we have implemented in the Databricks file system that is called mount point. But to set up any mount point, physically we need one file storage system. So fortunately in the Databricks, we have the DBFS concept, right? Databricks file storage systems. Means to set up mount point physically, I need one file storage. That file storage we are using the Databricks file system. With the help of the Databricks file system, with the help of the Databricks file system, right, we are accessing the data from Azure storage or Amazon S3 or any XYZ file system, right, from the Databricks file system. Means you are setting up the mount point into the Databricks file system, right, every time you're not taking any credentials, every time you're not using the complete URL details. To avoid these two steps, we are creating that mount point. We are creating into that mount point. That will create one by one. Okay. We'll create one by one. So what is the step one? What is the step one? There are three-step process, right? To set up mount point, there is a three-step process. All right. If you observe in the DB utils, right? DB utils dot fs dot, right? So this is the third step. This is the third step. With the help of that mount command, our mount method will set up the mount point. Will set up that mount point. Third step. But what is the step one? The step one, right? The step one, we should create the directory. We should create the directory. I mean, right? If you observe in the notepad, we have mentioned /mnt /ADLS, right? So these two are folders, right? These are MNT is a root folder, ADLS is a subfolder, right? ADLS is a subfolder. So basically, we should create one folder information. We should set up that folders into the Databricks file system. Right? Databricks file system. You can use the /mnt slash ADLS or blob storage. Blob storage. right? Blob storage account, right? Basically you're creating two folders. Basically you're creating two folders. One is slash mnt inside the blob storage account, right? With the help of that mkdars, right? This is the step one. The step one will set up the folders. We will create the folders into the your Databricks file system, your Databricks file system, right? If I want to see dbutils.fs.ls, right? The slash mnt, the blob storage account, the folder name is blob storage account, the size equal to 0, right? The size equal to 0. Let me go to create table, the Databricks file system. See, there is a slash mnt and a blob storage account. Blob storage account. Here you will not see that any data, only kind of logical representation. Logical representation. Now the step one, I have created the folders. Now the step one, I have created the folders. So what is the second step? If you want to access the data from the blob storage, right? This Databricks should get that access to this blob, right? Otherwise, it is not possible. Otherwise, it is not possible. There are two ways to, get that access to your blob, right? With the help of shared access signature or with the help of that account keys, right? With the help of that account keys, I will get especially either account keys or shared access signature. If you have these two details, happily we can get that access to your blob storage, right? Happily we can get that access to your blob storage. The second step, we should provide the configuration details. We should provide the configuration details. We should provide the configuration details. Let me go to the storage account. We'll see the customer.csv data. Here we have the key details, right? Otherwise, we can create the shared access signature. The second step, right? The second step, we should create the especially mount point folder creation. The second step, right, show title, right? Provide access details. The second step, you should provide the access details. So this the step one, you should create the folder. Your mount point folder. The second step, you should provide that your means basically here you should create one variable, right? That variable should contains your access details, right? Right. The second step, we should provide the especially these details. Your storage account access key, right? We'll go and create the second step. Right. So what is your storage account name? The storage account access key and the blob container name. This is our storage account name. What is the access key? This is your access key details. This is your access key details. The third one is your container name. I think Kiran is the container name. Right, Kiran is the container name. Right, you have created the three variables, right? Three variables: storage account name, storage account access keys, and the blob container name. The blob container name. If you're providing these access key details indirectly, you have that access to your storage account, right? Right. Let me execute the second step. Right. I provide that access details. What is the third step? The third step, with the help of the dbtils.fs.mount command, right? dbtils.fs.mount command, right? Will get that access. I mean, we'll set up that mount point. We'll set up that mount point. This fs.mount, right, contains a three-step process, right? Three-step. See here, first you should provide the source, right? You should provide that source from which source you want to access the data. I mean, this source, right? This source indirectly you're creating, especially this here mount folder. Indirectly you're creating that mount folder. This source you're replacing with your mount point folder details. Mount point folder details. Right, mount point folder details to access, especially to access these details, right? To access the details, we are providing that extra configurations, right? Extra configuration, your storage account name and your access key details. The storage account name and your access key details. With the help of this third step, right? With the help of this third step, we'll set up that mount point. That what is your container name? This is your blob container name, your storage account name. Right. See, Windows Azure Storage Blob Service. The first one is your container name at the rate storage account name dot blob dot core dot windows dot net. Right. The mount point is here. That mount point is /mnt point. Right. I mean, you have created the folder. Right. This is your mount point. This is your mount point. This is your mount point. If I'm executing, especially this third step, right? This third step, this complete source, right? This complete source, right? Replacing with your /mnt blob account /mnt blob account. This complete, instead of this URL, complete this URL. You are using this shortcut is equivalent to your mount point. If I want to read the data, right? If I want to read the data from that blob storage, so no need to provide this complete URL details. This highlighted one is equivalent to /mnt blob s account. Let me go and execute. Right, let me set some heading, show title. Right, if I want to see db utils dot fs dot ls. right? It's seeing the blob storage account, right? You are seeing the blob storage account. If you want to see the whether in your workspace do we have any other mount points are created or not. So this is once we especially log into the Databricks, right? The step one always will execute whether do we have any mounts, whether do we have any mounts are available in your folder, right? Display, display. Here I'm using the mounts. Here I'm using the mounts. Here I'm using the mount. Here I'm using the mount. Here I'm using the mounts. The mounts command is used to display the list of mount points are available in your workspace. In your workspace. Right. So these are the mount points are available. These are the mount points are available. These are the mount points are available in your workspace. Right. These are the mount points are available. See, just now we created this mount point, right? Just now we created that mount point. These are the default mount points. These are the default mount points. Right. If you want to see db utils dot these are default mount points are provided by your community databricks, but this mount point the row number 4, right? This mount point explicitly created by us, right? The rest of things were created by your especially Databricks. See, that encryption type is here equal to blank. So these are some kind of SSE hyphen S. These three, I mean, five mount points were created by your Databricks system. These are the default one. Right? If you want to see the data, right? You want to see the data, you can go and use. Right? See, these are the default data points, right? These are the default data available. See here, Spark. But physically, you're not able to see the data, right? Physically, you're not able to see the data, right? Go to your data pointer, create table, Databricks file system, right? Slash MNT only the blob storage account. But here, right here, we are using the folder Databricks hyphen datasets. Databricks hyphen. Do we have the Databricks hyphen datasets folder? No, right here you're not able to see the Databricks hyphen datasets. So these are the default mount points set up by your Databricks, set up by your cloud Databricks or normal Databricks. Those are the default mount points. Because fortunately, so they have created n number of folders, right? N number of folders. If you want to see the data, right? If you want to see the data, right? For example, let's see again. You have that one for read mb.md. Again, you have that one more folder data hyphen 001, right? Yes. See. So these are the default CSV files are available, right? Default CSV files are available. Data.csv, right? In case if I want to read the data, right? If I want to read the data, I can use this file path, right? In case if I want to do that any practice, right? Any practice, we can use these files, right? Right. So these are the your sample data files, right? These are your sample data files. But physically, we don't have the Databricks dataset folder, and inside the bike sharing, inside data hyphen 001 data.csv. These files are not available, right? These files are physically not available, but logically, the logically files are available, right? Logically, the files are available, right? Because the Databricks, right? In case if you want to do any practice, right? You need some sample data, right? You need sample data. Already they have set up that mount point. They have set up that mount point. All right, inbuilt they have set up that mount point. If in case if you want to read the data, some sample file, so no need to upload. You can use any one of that mount point. You can use any one of that mount point. Maybe the backend these mount points at the backend these mount points are pointing to some XYZ file storage. The backend maybe these folders are right? You're not able to physically see these files, right? Folders, maybe logically the backend folders are available, right? These special mount points were created by your Databricks file system. But the step one, especially in the real time, right? Once you log into the Databricks access, you have to execute this command. You have to execute this command. See your encryption type equal to, right, empty. If it is encryption type equal to empty, means, or otherwise you can explicitly also you can create an encryption type, right? But these are the default one. These are the default one. These are for example, if you're seeing the slash mnt mean explicitly created by the especially the developer, then you can, okay, yes, we are reading the data or writing the data to especially this blob storage or maybe ADLS Gen 1 or ADLS Gen 2. Now you will see, okay, in your project there are a number of mount points are available. Those mount points are pointing to a number of source path details. It could be ADLS Gen 1, Gen 2 or blob storage or blob storage. Depends in case in your project, if you are using the multiple ADLS, right? Multiple ADLS, right? Then you will see the multiple mount points. If you are using the only one mount point, that is only Gen 1 or Gen 2, right? Then you will see that only one mount point. So it depends on your project. If you are accessing the data from multiple ADLS, right? Then you will see that multiple mount point. Maybe within the development also, in case if you are planning to use two ADLS, right? Two ADLS. One is for raw data, the second one is the process data, right? Maybe they want to create two ADLS folders, right? ADLS folders, right? Then you will see the two mount point. In case if in your project they want to create only one mount, only one ADLS, right? Then you will see that only one mount point. So this is an interview question. I want to see the list of mount points in my workspace. So which command will use? Will use mounts, not mount, mounts. That mount is to set up your mount point. Mounts means to list out what are the mount points are available in your workspace, in your workspace. Clear, right? In case, in the worst case, for example, in the worst case, right, dbtils.fs dot sir dot tab, right? So there is an unmount also, right? There is an unmount. Maybe you're executing your jobs, you're reading the data from your mount point, right? The backend, the storage account is ADLS, but unfortunately, right, it's getting failed, not able to read, not able to read, the folder is not available, the folder is not available, the folder is not available. Maybe it could be your, maybe your mount point was corrupted, your mount point was corrupted. At that time you have to explicitly unmount, explicitly you have to unmount, right? Explicitly you have to unmount your mount point. Then you should execute again those three-step process, right? Folder is not required. Again you should execute the provide access details and mount point setup, right? I mean, for example, yes, already the mount point was corrupted. That mount point was corrupted. What is that alternative? Right? Let me go and do that unmount. Then let me go and create one more time. Right? In the worst case, your production jobs are getting failed. Then you realize it could be mount point issue. It could be mount point issue. Maybe it was corrupted your mount point. Very rare, it was corrupted. It was corrupted. What is that alternative? Let me go and do that unmount. Unmount means me indirectly you're disconnecting, right? Indirectly you're disconnecting to your storage account from the Databricks file system. Then again you have to do the connectivity, right? Connectivity means to set up that mount point. Here you should provide your mount point folder, the slash mnt ADLS. So with the help of that unmount, you can disconnect to your storage account from your Databricks file system. The last, we have that four commands are available, especially to mount, right? Mount, mounts, unmount, and refresh. Refresh also, we have that one more command, dbutils dot fs dot refresh mounts. Refresh mounts. All right. For example, your mount is not refreshing properly. Maybe your mount is not refreshing properly. All right. Explicitly, you can use this command. explicitly you can use this command. I mean, always it will refresh your mount point into the Databricks file system. Refreshing means the backend that mount point is connecting to your storage account. The backend that mount point will be always it will refresh. In case you're right, you're suspecting it could be some mount issue. All right, then go and explicitly execute your refresh mounts. All right, explicitly you can go and execute refresh mounts. Otherwise, up to your wish. In case if you feel right frequently you are getting some mount point issue, right, mount point issue, then you can use this command. This I mean you can use this your starting command in your notebook. Right, the step one before kick off your reading and writing process, right? You can do the refresh mounts. Then you can read the data and you can write the data. Right, you can read and write the data from your storage account or your blob storage or Gen1 or Gen2. The step one, you can do the refresh mounts. Then the step two, you can read and write. But these three steps only one time activity. These three steps means you will explicitly create one notebook to set up that mount point. The same notebook you will deploy into the QA prod production, but explicitly you should change these details. This is because one time activity, right? Only once you deploy the code in the QA, this anyway this notebook only one time execution, right? One time execution, right? This you can deploy this notebook. You can deploy this notebook post completion of the deployment, right? Post completion deployment, then you will create the folders. Then you will change the details, right? Here according to your storage account name, your access key details, because the container name is anyway same. That account name, access key details are different. Then you will execute the third step in the QA and production. This is only one time activity. Only one time activity. And now you have that mount point, right? Now you have that mount point. If I want to read the data from that my blob storage, right? I want to read the data dbutils dot fs dot ls. The slash mnt ADLS. The slash mnt ADLS. Not ADLS, blob ADLS. See, blob storage account. So these are available, right? Cases information, right? Refer schema. These informations are available in your storage account, right? Go to container, current folder, right? So these files are right. These files are I'm able to see, right? I'm able to see in the especially Databricks, right? In the Databricks dbtools.fs.ls. So these command especially on your Databricks file storage, right? Databricks file storage, Databricks utilities.fs.ls. You can list out the files and folders. Right? We can the previous example here we had used only the Databricks file storage commands. Right? Now I'm using the same still the Databricks file storage command only. Right? The slash mnt, the blob s account. These two folders are available in your Databricks file storage, but these folders are not available. Right? Physically, these folders are not available. Right? Physically, these folders are not available. No, you don't have any folders or files, right? But whenever I'm executing this ls command, but I'm able to see these folders, these files, right? These files I'm able to see, right? These files I'm able to see because this slash mnt blob storage account is pointing to your storage account. Whenever you're executing these commands, right? Whenever you're if you want to see the files, if you want to see the content from the slash mnt blob storage account, right? Indirectly you're reading the data from your storage account. You're reading the data from your storage account, right? For example, if I want to read the data, right? If I want to read the data from this file, right? I will use dbutils dot fs dot head. Right now, I'm able to see the data in my Databricks file storage, but physically the file is not available inside your /mnt blob storage account. But logically, the file is available inside the /mnt blob store because you have set up that mount point, right? You have set up that mount point, right? This highlighted one is equivalent to here, especially the storage account and a container. Now I can use directly this one, right? I can directly use the /mnt, the blob storage account. If I want to read the data from the country response.csv, I can use only this path details, right? I can use only this path details. Right? I can use only this path details. So physically, the file is available in the storage account, but logically, the file is available inside the /mnt, the blob s account. So this is also one of the advantage of the especially mount point. Clear, right? This is 100% interview question. They will ask what is the advantage of that mount point. If you are setting that mount point, how you will read the data, right? Where your data is available. Your data is available inside the storage account only, but logically you're calling your storage account right from your mount point. So this is your mount point right now. This is so this is a three-step process. The step one, we should create the folder, right? We should create the mount point folder because you will access the data from this folder. The second step, you should provide your access details, right? Like your storage account name, access key, or your container name, right? Content. Third step, very, very important one, you should set up that mount point, right? You should provide the mount point. From the mount point, you should provide your source, which storage account, right? You're pointing to your mount point. This storage account is pointing to this mount point, right? See the source information, right? Next, you're providing your mount point. Already the mount point we were created in the step one, right? The extra configuration, right? The storage account name, storage account access key. These two variables you are created into the step two. Clear, right? Any doubts?
No, bro.
So there are four types of methods are available, especially on that mount. Mount, right? This mount method is used to set up that mount point. Mounts is used to display a list of mount points on your workspace. The third one, all right, please provide your here mount point /mnt ADLS or blob storage account. Right. If you want to disconnect again, you want to connect, right? Then go and use that unmount place explicitly. Here you should provide that your mount pointer name. The fourth command, refresh mounts. In case, right, you're suspecting every time your mounts are not refreshing, right? Mounts are not refreshing. You're encountering some issues, right? Then to overcome those issues, blindly you can use the refresh mounts. But again, it is a some time taken process. Hardly some 30 seconds or 1 minute. Depends on your data volume. Depends on your data volume. It will do the refresh mounts. In case you want to overcome those suspect issues, right? Then you can use the refresh mounts in your code. Otherwise, explicitly you can execute your refresh mounts. Right? Once you set up that mount pointer, once you set up that mount pointer, then you can use that list command inside your especially mount point. You will see that files or folders from your storage account. From your storage account. Right? Post successful completion of this mount pointer, right? So we should check save. I mean, For cross, we should do the cross check whether really this mount is pointing to your storage account, right? Then you simply can display the ls command, or you can copy the data, right? For example, I want to copy the data. I want to copy the data from, right? I want to copy the data from, for example, customer folder, right? Right, I want to copy the data from this customer folder. Properties. Suppose successful completion of the mount point, I want to execute some file system commands. I want to copy dbutils dot fs dot cp. Right. What is your mount point? This is your mount point, right? This is your mount point. This is your mount point. Right. This is your mount point. Right. What is your folder? Right. Customer.cc. Right. Customer.cc. I want to copy this file. I want to copy this file. All right. Right. Let me go and check. Now you have copied the data, right, from Blob storage to your Databricks file system. Your Databricks file system. Right. Because this slash mlt Blob storage account is pointing to your storage account. But otherwise, if you want to copy the data, right? If you want to copy the data inside that EMP, right? If you want to copy the data inside that EMP. Let me go and execute. Now customer data is available, right? All right. We are using the special file system command to copy the data from one storage account to another storage account. I mean, within the storage account, one folder to another folder. Also, you can do that copy. If you want, you can do that remove. You can create. We can do the folder deletion. Right. If you want, you can see the content. If you want to list out, right, everything you can create here. Everything you can create clear. All the commands like put command you can execute, mk dirs. If you want, you can create any folders also. If you want any folders, so you can create. Clear, right? Yes, sir. The advantage of the mount point is clear, right?
Yes, bro.
This 100% interview question. Interview question. I mean, for example, post completion of this mount point creation, right? We should cross check whether really your mount point is pointing to your storage account or ADLS. But how can I check? Very simple command, that ls command, right? The dbutils dot fs dot ls, right? Slash mnt slash blob s account. It will display, right? If you want, you can use the display command. In case we were expecting some tabular format data, right? Then you can use the display command. But if you want, you can download the data also. All right, you can download the data. See, you have this file. The customer folder is there, right? Inside the customer folder is there. These are the files information inside your storage account. That EMP is the folder. EMP is the folder. So these are your CSV files. These are your CSV files. These are your CSV files. Right. Post completion, just you can execute this command, right? If you're able to see the data, right, then you're having that access to your storage account from this mount point. If it is not able to display the data, if you're getting some error message, right, means you don't have access to your storage account. You don't have access to your storage account from this mount point. From your mount point. Let me. So this is for blob storage. The same way we should create the mount point for ADLS, but unfortunately ADLS Gen 1 we don't have the SAS token or account keys details, right? So what is the step? The step we should go with that SPN details, right? We should go and create that SPN details. So this is for only the blob, right? This is for the blob. But how can I create that mount point for ADLS Gen 1? How can I create that mount point for ADLS Gen 1? Right? How can I create that mount point for ADLS Gen 1? ADLS Gen 1. Only here, instead of that access, right? Instead of the especially the SAS token or account key details, right? SAS token or account key details, right? SAS token or account key details will get the especially SPN details, right? But the step one is common, right? Step one is the common. What is the step one? DB utils dot fs dot mkdirs, right? Mkdirs, right? Slash mnt slash ADLS, for example, Gen 1, right? ADLS Gen 1, right? ADLS Gen 1 folder is available. ADLS Gen 1 is folder available. What is the second step? The second step, we should provide that access details, right? What is the second step? The second step, we should provide the SPN details, right? Here, service principal name details. Because ADLS Gen 1, we don't have access key details, right? Or SAS token details, right? Either you can create your mount point based on account key details or SAS token details, right? SAS token details. But ADLS, we don't have any access key details or account key details, access key details or account key. So what is that alternative? That alternative, we should provide your service principal name details, right? You should provide your service principal name details, right? But how can I create my service principal name details? Go to your Azure Active Directory, right? Go to Azure Active Directory, go and create your app registration, right? Go and create your app registration. Okay. Go and create your app registration. For example, ADLS Gen 1 app. Right. What is your? You should copy your application client ID or your service principal ID. Both are same, right? Next, your password, right? Your secret key, right? Secret word. What is the secret key? You should create your certificates and secrets, right? Here you should create your secret. Here what is the secrets we should create? Right, let me go and copy this value. This is your secret key details. Right, application client end and secret. What is the next step? Right, go to your overview. There is the endpoint, right? There is the endpoint. From this endpoint, you should provide your authentication, the token information. Alright, we should get this authentication token. Right. This is your endpoint. This is your endpoint. So what is the next? Now you have created your especially SPN details. This Azure Active Directory SPN you have created, right? Azure Active Directory application you have created. What is the next step? The next step you should go to your Azure Data Lake Storage Generation 1. Here you have to provide the access, right? Here you should provide the access with the help of the access control list, right? Go to your Data Explorer, go to your Data Explorer, go and create your access. Yet add, select ADLS Gen 1. This application we should provide that access, right? Provide read write access folder and default entry and go to right, succeeded. Go to your Data Explorer. Right. Okay, let me go and now your SPN is having that access to your ADLS. Your SPN is having that access to your ADLS. But how can extract my SPN details? How can I create my configuration object or configuration variable? The configuration variable should contains your SPN details. Contains your SPN details. If you observe in that blob also, there is a extra underscore configurations, right? Extra underscore configuration. That extra underscore configuration contains your complete your storage account name and your account key details, right? Account key details. Correct. The same way we should provide this application ID or service principal ID, service principal key, or your password details and your endpoint details. We should provide in the second step. In the second step. But in the second step, see, we should provide your proper access key details. Right. In the second step, we should provide your configuration. You should create one variable configs, or any variable a b c or xyz, right? Any variable you should create. See here there is a prefix, right? What is the prefix? The prefix is your ADL, right? Your ADL, because based on your runtime version, based on your runtime, see, prefix is fs.adl for Databricks runtime 6.0 and above. DFS.ADLS for Databricks runtime 5.5 and below. Now we are using the latest runtime version, right? I think 8.x, right? We are using the 8.x runtime version. Right? The prefix is file system.adl, fs.adl, fs.adl. ADL, we should provide the prefix. File system dot ADL dot, right? The client credential, right? The client credential here. What is the client ID? The client ID equivalent to the first one, right? So this is your client ID, right? You should provide your client ID. Control C. This is your client ID. What is your credential? Credentials means your secret key, right? Secret key nothing but your credential. Control C. What is the third one? The refresh URL, right? Login.microsoft.online.com. Your value authentication to slash token. Right? Authentication to slash token. Right? So this is your endpoint, right? This is the endpoint means you're accessing your especially your ADLS, right, from this authentication to token. Let me go and execute. Now we have created one variable configs, right? That configs variable content. It is kind of dictionary, right? If you just go and execute type of your configs. This is a Python syntax, right? In the Scala syntax, you should mention val or var information, right? This is your Python, right? Because now you have created one dictionary. Now you have created a dictionary. This is your key. This is your value, right? This is your key. For example, if you want to see the configs dot keys, it will display all the keys information. That if you are executing values, it will display all the values information. That. Pointer. ADLS table. Here you have to use your dbtools.fs.mount the source information, your mount point information, plus your configuration information. Right? Your configuration information you should provide. What is your ADLS name? This is your ADLS name, right? This is your ADLS name, right? This is your ADLS. This is your AIC folder. Right? This is your AIC folder. Right? Now your config contains the second step, right? Your configs, right? Configs. Your configs contains all that information. Slash mnt ADLS G1. Slash mnt ADLS G1. Here extra configs. I think extra underscore configurations. Let me execute. I think extra underscore configs. Mount underscore point. Mount underscore. Extra underscore config. You have successfully set up your mount point. Right? You have successfully set up mount. What is the next step? You should check, right, whether your mount point is created or not. Right? You can use the mount set. You can use that mounts. Right? This- Right now, you have created ADLS genomic. Right? You have created the slash inventory slash ADLS genomic. All right. Once you have logged into your Databricks, right, in the real time, right, for example, you want to know, so this Databricks is reading and writing to which data lake path, right? Then you can take this information, you can open your storage account or ADLS. Okay, means in your workspace your mount point is pointing to this Azure data lake storage. Right, just you can go and open. Okay, maybe it is development or QA prod production. Right, depends on your workspace. If it is workspace is development, right, you will see, for example, maybe in your project, maybe your workspace is QA, so it is pointing to the development, right? Then you can cross check. Okay, maybe in that QA they're pointing to the development. All right, they're pointing to the development. Maybe they want to read the data from the development, but they want to read the data from the development. Right, with the help of this information, you can, I mean, you can easily guess, okay, this storage account is using especially in this workspace as a source or target or both information, right, or both information. If you want to see the display db utils, db utils dot fs dot ls slash mnt slash adls g1. Let's see, all the files are available, right? Sir, available. Right. You can see that all the files from that ADLS. You can see that all the files from that ADLS. But instead of providing the complete URL path details, because this is your complete URL path details, right? This is complete your URL path details. Instead of providing the complete URL path details, we'll use the shortcut slash mnt ADLS geo. Clear, right?
Yes, bro.
But this is 100% interview question. 100 percentage will set up mount point in the real time. 100 percentage will set up in the real time. Right. Any doubts? The mount point setup for Blob and ADLS. This is only one-time activity. This is only one time. Each and every environment, we will copy this code in all the QA pre-prod production. That only these values will change, will execute. Only that one-time setup. Only one-time setup. In the case if you're not using a mount point, right, then every time we should take this information. Every time, I mean, basically we have some spark.set.config command is available. Every time we should register your configuration details into the cluster. Each and every execution, right, we should feed that information into your cluster. But now we are feeding that information at workspace level, right? At workspace, only one-time activity. If your workspace is available, right, indirectly your AD, I mean your mount point also available, right? If your workspace is available, right, then automatically you can access the data from your ADLS or Blob. ADLS or Blob details. Suresh, any doubts?
No, Sumant. I think for now it's clear. I will get back.
Okay, but this 100 percentage will set up the mount point in the real time. So secondary for setup, right? In case they will interview, they will ask the question: have you set up any mount point in your project? If you yes, what are the steps you will follow? So what kind of commands are available in that mount? There are four types of commands, right? Four types of command. The first command is method or commands: mount, mounts, unmount, refresh mount, refresh. So the first point is to set up a mount point, right? Set up mount point. This is only one-time activity. Mounts list out, right? List out, right? List out mount points in your workspace, right? Workspace means in your environment, right? In your workspace, right? dbtools dot fs dot mounts. All right, bracket open, bracket close. On top of it, you can use the display command. If you want to see the tabular format, right? You can see the data. That unmount, right? That unmount, right? Right? Disconnect your storage, right? Disconnect your storage. Disconnect to your storage. All right, then again you can go and execute mount point one more time. Refresh mounts means refresh all mount points, right? All mount points in workspace. Refresh mounts all mount points in your storage. To set up mount point, this is the three-step process. Right? The step one will create the folder. Second step will get the configuration details. Third step will use the dbtools.fs.mount. From this third step contains three information: source information, your mount point information, plus your extra configuration information. Extra. So this is the Python syntax, not Scala syntax. So this is the Python syntax. This is your Python syntax. This is your Python syntax. So this is your Scala syntax. This is especially mount point in the Scala. Extra configs also is Scala. This is not Python. This is Scala. Extra configs. But mount point is a Scala only. Right. Mount point is a Scala. Yeah, this is extra underscore configs is Python. Mount underscore point is Python. But Scala is different. Python is different. The syntax. The third step, you should provide the source information, mount point information, and the extra configuration information. This is your variable. Otherwise, you can directly copy paste here also to your machine. You want to create the separate, alright? Go and create separate. Just you can call out your variable configs. Once you have successfully executed, then you can go and check. Just if you're able to see the data, right? If you're able to see the ls command or any head command, right? If you're able to see the data, if you preview the data from that csv, from the ADLS, with the help of the dbutilities fs command, right? You have that access to your Azure Data Storage. Okay, if you're clear, we'll talk about notebook utility. We're talking about notebook utility. Okay. So what is the usage of the notebook utilities object? DB. Contains exit and run. It contains exit and run. It contains two commands. So what is the usage of the run command? What is the usage of the exit command? I have one first one notebook, maybe some variable declaration. Variable one, maybe some log file creation. Log first your main notebook. First from this main notebook, that I want to call some variable. These variables are common for all. For example, in your workspace, you have the 10 notebooks. The 10 notebooks are main notebook, but those 10 notebooks, right? You're using the common variables. I think approximately close to 250 common variables you are using all the 10 notebooks. That's why should you create all the 10 notebooks, all the 15 variables on 10 notebooks. So can't we created one shared notebook or reusable notebook?
Someone,
I,
one second. Uh,
yeah,
your voice is not clearly audible. I don't know whether it's only to me or others as well.
only now.
Now it is clear,
It's fine now.
Okay,
but
yeah.
so far
Now
it's not clear. Yeah,
it's clear, right?
now it's clear, Suman. Thank
Okay, so I think there are four types of utilities are available, especially in the Databricks. The first utility is widgets. Already we had discussed it. The second is file system. Again, the file system divided into two types of methods, right? FS utilities and mounts. The second one also we discussed. What is the third one? The third one is the especially notebook, the dbutils dot notebook. So what is the usage of the dbutilities notebook, right? What is the usage of the dbutils dot notebook? The dbutils dot notebook contains two methods, exit method and run method. Exit method and run method. So what is the usage of the run method? For example, in my project, right? In my project, I have 10 main notebooks. I have 10 main notebooks are available. That each notebook, right? That each notebook, right? I have some 15 common variables. 15 common variables are, right? I have to create 15 common variables on all 10 notebooks, right? So why should I create these 15 variables in each and every notebook? So can't we created one dedicated notebook or shared notebook or reusable notebook? Let me go and define these 15 variables. Let me go and define these 15 variables, right? These 15 variables in other notebook, right? Other notebook. Those values I want to reuse. Those values I want to reuse. Those values I want to reuse in the main notebook. In the main notebook, right? Means you want to execute from one notebook to another notebook, right? Because this variable declaration is one notebook, the log file creation is one notebook, your main notebook is also one notebook. From this main notebook, right, you want to execute this variable declaration notebook. From this main notebook you want to execute your log file creation notebook. All right. Otherwise, just think about the dependency. Forget about this example. Otherwise, you can think about dependency. You have the master data, or maybe you have the reference data. Reference data. You have some your fact data, right? You have fact data or your transactional data, right? You have some dependency. You have some dependency. If I want to execute my fact notebook, if I want to execute my fact notebook, but before fact notebook, the dimension should be set up. The dimension should be set up because the dimensions are independent, right? These facts are dependent, right? Dependent. So there is a dependency, right? There is a dependency. But before executing this fact notebook, the dependency code should be executed. the dependency code. Once this dependency completes successfully, then only I want to execute my factor notebook. Then only I want to. But how can I add the dependency? How can I add the dependency? Means from the ADF side, you want to you want me to create dimensions notebook. Once it is success, then we have to create the fact notebook. This is one of the best method, right? Yes, once your dimension success, then only you're calling out your fact notebook. But why should I create two activities in my pipeline? So can't we implement with only one activity? Right? If I'm using only the fact notebook execution from that ADF, from that ADF, but what about your dimension notebook? Without successful completion of your dimensions notebook, we should not execute the fact notebook. But if you're calling out only the fact notebook, but what about the dependency? But how you will add the dependency? How you will achieve the dependency between dimensions and fact notebook? Right? Means from this fact notebook, can't we execute the dimension notebook like your execute pipeline? That execute pipeline, right? From one pipeline, you're calling or you're executing another pipeline, right? You're calling other pipe. The same methodology, I want to execute from one notebook to another notebook. But how can I execute from one notebook to another notebook? One notebook to another notebook. The command is dbutils dot notebook dot run option. dbutils dot notebook dot run option. This is 100% interview question. Interview, they will ask the question, I want to execute one notebook from another notebook, but how you will execute? There are two methods. You can use run method, or you can use percentage run method. Magic command percentage run, you should provide your notebook path details. Either you can provide dbutils.notebook.run option, or you can use that percentage notebook path. Percentage notebook path. All right. dbutils.notebook.run. Here you should provide your path details. You can provide your argument details. Let's see. You should provide your path details, your notebook path details. Then you can mention your timeout seconds. The timeout second. Then you should provide your arguments details. You should provide your argument details. We should provide your argument details. For example, I think from the free subscription we don't have access. Copy file path. Copy file path means here this is your notebook path details. dbutils dot f sorry notebook dot run path equal to comma timeout seconds. Right. To enable notebook workflows, please upgrade your Databricks subscription. All right. But from the free subscription, we don't have option to especially execute this run option. Right. If you want to use this feature, we have to use that upgrade. But in the real time, right? In the real time, we have that option, right? To execute your dbtools.notebook. The same syntax. You have to provide the path. You have to provide your timeout seconds, right? If you want, you can provide your arguments also. Right. In case if you have that any arguments, right? Like your this notebook is having some input parameters, right? The third parameter, you should provide that your arguments. Otherwise, we'll use the percentage run option. Percentage run, you should provide the your path details. think this code got failed. Let me use the sample. Let me use the sample code. See, high message rate. Right. Either you can use notebook.run or you can use the percentage run. But if you want to execute the notebook.run option, right? Notebook.run option, right? We have to upgrade our subscription. From the free subscription, we don't have this option to run. But otherwise, we can use the percentage run. The advantage of the percentage run, you can use these variables in your local, right? In case if you want to, for example, this notebook contains some XYZ variables. If you want to use this XYZ variables in the current execution, we can use the percentage run. That advantage of the notebook.run, right? That advantage of the notebook.run, you can execute from Python scalar notebook or Python to Python notebook also you can use. Right? Either anything, either percentage run or dbtools.notebook.run option we can use. So it depends on your requirement. But both cases we can execute one notebook from another notebook. We can execute one notebook from another notebook. We can execute from one notebook to another notebook. Either you can use percentage run, but this 100% error question. How you will execute one notebook from another notebook? Either you can use the notebook.run option or you can use the magic command. So this is magic command, right? The percentage run, right? The advantage here, right? I mean, this is your common regular code, right? I mean, within this code, you can use that Python program also, right? Again, if I want to use that Python program here, right? So this is that magic command, right? The percentage run is a magic command to execute one notebook from another notebook. This is your regular code. Here you can write your complete Python code. Next cells also you can use. But if you want to execute here, right? If you want to explicitly execute, then you have to dedicate it for separate cell only. Here, for example, let me use get what is the error message that why I'm not able to execute the fail to parse run command sharing regular expressions, right? Because this is your magic command, right? Percentage run is magic command, right? Percentage run is your magic command. Now you're executing your Python program. Maybe you're executing other code, right? You're executing other code. So this is not possible, right? Maybe you're performing some if conditional statement or for loop. You're executing some if condition or some for loop, right? Each and every iteration you want to execute your notebook. Each and every execution. If, for example, you have the 10 iteration, 10 times you want to execute your notebook, right? 10 times you want to execute different notebooks, but the percentage run it will not help out, right? Because the percentage run we should explicitly call out one specific cell, but here, right, here this is not your regular Python code, right? Your regular Python code, happily we can use this code. You can include this dbutils notebook.run inside your for loop, inside your if statement. Only this path you can change, that arguments you can change, right? Arguments you can change. But the percentage run, right, the disadvantage, right, the dedicated cell you have to use to execute your percentage run. Other the rest of things both are same. To execute one notebook from another notebook, we'll use the either percentage run or dbtools.notebook.run to maintain the dependency, or if you want to reuse some other notebooks in your code, right, then we'll prefer the dbtools.notebook.run. But that advantage dbtools.notebook.run, you can include this command, you can include this command in your regular code. Means your for loop, you can include your if condition also, you can include. But whereas in percentage run, you have to dedicatedly use this command, right? You have to dedicatedly use this command, because here you're using the magic command, right? If you're using the magic command, your regular either Python or Scala code, right, you will not use inside the command for it. That is only one of the disadvantage of the percentage run. But unfortunately, the run command from the free subscription, we don't have that option. Right? Please upgrade your Databricks subscription. Right? In case we want to use the run command from the community, right? We don't have this option. In case, for example, yes, I have executed my notebook. I have executed my notebook from that ADF. ADF, I'm executing one notebook, right? ADF, I'm executing one notebook, right? I'm expecting some return value from the notebook. I'm expecting some return value from the notebook, because that output values, right? That output values I want to capture, right? Post successful completion, how many source rows are extracted, how many target rows are extracted, right? Source rows, target rows. These information I want to return, right? These information I want to return from my notebook. But if it is a copy activity, if it's a copy activity, we can take the copy activity output dot source read, the copy rows copied, rows read information, rows throughput, copy duration. These properties are available in your copy activity output, right? Copy activity output. But if I'm executing my notebook, right? If I'm executing my notebook, post successful completion of my notebook should return some values. But notebook should, if you observe your notebook, the default values here, right, that is run page url, right? If you observe, there is a run page url is available, right? The run page url, it contains your complete that notebook, the log path details, right? The your workspace url details. You can open that url, you can see the your information, right? Your notebook execution steps you can see, right? But that notebook also, I'm expecting to return some source rows and target rows. But which property have to enable to return your notebook, right? Yes, I'm expecting my notebook should return some source rows and target rows, source rows and target rows. But which command we have to use to return your notebook? The command name is called dbutils dot notebook dot exit. Unfortunately, this exit contains only one parameter, even that one parameter also only the string. Even that one parameter also only one string. But in your requirement, you have sources, two variables, right? Two variables. If you want to return more than one variable, please concatenate all the variables into the single variable. Moreover, your exit also will return only the string data type. Only the string. If you, for example, you want to return one list, you want to return one list, you want to return one list from your notebook. You're executing one notebook, right? You're executing one notebook. In the last command, post successful completion of your command, you want to return some value. You want to return some value from the notebook, but you want to return some list. But this notebook.exit will return only the string data type, right? Only the string data type. Explicitly, you have to do the your casting. Explicitly, you have to do the your casting. Means str of your list variable, but only one value it will return. Alright, you're expecting some list, right? But from that exit command, right, you have to do the casting to the string. Once you have written, on top of it, you can use that evaluate function, or depends on your data factory, right? Maybe the list you want to write the data to, again your database. On top of it, you can use some JSON functions, right? JSON functions to convert into the list or dictionary. But explicitly we have to use, otherwise um, forcefully we have to use again one more casting to get your list values or dictionary values or tuple values. But the dbutils.notebook.exit only return one parameter, even that one parameter also it should belongs to string data type. String data type will execute this exit command, right? dbutils dot dot exit. Yet you're returning that void message, right? For example, that notebook exited your 10 value. All right, notebook return your 10 value. A equal to 10. A equal to 10. Type of A. Let me use other way because already we have used exit command, right? Where is the first command? First code. So again, that command it will not return, right? Yeah, but ultimately, if you're executing a notebook exit, right, it is equivalent to your data type is string only because already this command completed, right? This command is completed. That's why you're not able to see that output. But name is already you have exit, right? Already you have exit. You will not see this output. But this is equivalent to your string data type only. This is equivalent to your string data type. This is equivalent to your string data type. For example, your source rows, right? Your source rows equivalent to your source rows equivalent to, for example, 10 values. That's why I'm making within the double quotes. I want to concatenate it. I want to concatenate. For example, source rows equal to 5 records. Because you're reading the data from your Databricks 10 records, you're writing the data into the target equal target rows equal to 5 records. Right? What is the next requirement? My next requirement, I want to return, right? I want to return db utils dot notebook dot exit. Use source rows comma. Let me use the target rows. Right. See the dbutils dot notebook dot exit src rows comma target rows. Right. Let me make it concatenation plus symbol. Syntax spelling mistake. Notebook. Right. Exit takes two position argument. Right. Takes two position argument, but three were given. Right. But three were given. Let me make out plus symbol. Now see that notebook equal to 10 comma 5, right? 10 comma 5. In between you can use the again one more comma separator, right? One more comma separator at 10 comma 5. This information I can send to my data factory at 10 comma 5. The first variable is source records. The second variable is your target records. In case if your data factory is expecting some return value from your Databricks, right? From your Databricks, maybe you want to do some, you want to maintain some log utilities, or you want to maintain some log tables. Like we implemented that ETL log information, right? From that ETL, I don't want to run any logging method from the Databricks. I want to maintain all the logging from ADF point of view, like the stored procedure, because already the framework is available, right? But your notebook should return some values, right? Your notebook should return some values. But how your notebook will return some values, right? Then we'll use that exit command. Now the notebook is exited 10 comma 5, right? From your, I mean, notebook activity, right? Notebook activity, notebook dot output dot, right? The return value equal to 10 comma 5. From the 10 comma 5, you can extract your 10 value and you can extract your 5 value. 10 is equivalent to your source, 5 is equivalent to your target. Now source 10 is equivalent to target 5. Both are not equal, right? Means your source, I mean, data ingestion is not matching, right? But in case if you are applying some filter condition, right, still your validation is failed, but this is expected, right? Because your source records are 10, but while writing the data into that my target, I have applied some filter condition. I applied my your source original records are 10 records, but you have returned to your target system 5 because you have applied some filter condition, some where condition you have applied. That's why you're able to see that 5 records. Otherwise, don't capture your original source records. Just apply the filter condition, then take that count. If the count equal to 5, your target count equal to 5, right? If both are same, your validation rule success or your validation rule failed. For example, post completion of the filter, because your source main, your original count is 20 quantity. After filter, you're expecting 10 records into your target, but unfortunately only the 5 records are loaded. The remaining 5 records were rejected due to some data type issues. Okay. Now your validation rule failed, right? Because you're expecting 10 records into your target, but you have written only that 5 records. From this output you can create one validation rule in that store procedure, right? You can return this 10 comma 5, the 10 source rows, 5 target rows. In the validation rule, go with your case statement that source rows equal to target rows. If both are same, that validation rule success or validation rule failed. If validation rule failed, then you can initiate one email trigger, right? You can initiate one email trigger, right? Today that validation rule failed, but the source records are not successfully copied into target, then you can immediately do that analysis, right? At that time, the dbtools.notebook.exit command will help out. Means your notebook is returning some value. But if you are executing the dbtools.notebook.exit, right? But in your, you will not see the complete log information. You will not see the complete log information. So this is your last command, right? Once you executed, right? Once you executed, the next subsequent commands, it will not execute. Statement of your node means where you want to stop your notebook execution, right? Where you want to return value, there you can use your node dbtools.notebook.exit command. Clear, right? So basically that exit, right? You're executing one notebook, that notebook is returning some output, right? At that time, that notebook exit command will use. Any doubts?
We need to practice a lot.
Okay. The concept is clear, right?
Concept is clear.
But you have to do practice, right?
Yeah.
But these 100%, but these are very simple commands, but 100% questions. These are very simple commands, but 100% questions, because these are not your Spark or PySpark commands. These are only your Databricks utilities. But we'll use, I mean, each and every notebook, you will use dbtools notebook.exit, dbtools.notebook.run, or percentage run, or widgets, or the file system command, or notepad. Every day you will use these commands in your code. 20% you will use only the Databricks utilities. 80% you will write your main code, like your upset logic, AC type 1, type 2, those codes.
Do we get any step-by-step material? I mean, this anyway, you will give this.
And what you're expecting step by step for this notebook, I mean widgets. Anyway, I think I provided, right, already.
Yes, yes.
Because anyway, you can execute help. It will give the complete detailed information.
Okay.
It will give the details and information. That notebook contains two methods, right? Run method and exit method. Run method and the run method if you want to execute one notebook from another notebook. That exit method if you want to return some value from your notebook, then we'll use that exit method. But exit method only one parameter. Only you will use that one parameter. But you will use only one parameter. That will use that only that one parameter. If you want to return multiple values, right, you can concatenate multiple values into the single parameter. You can return, right, with comma separator. For example, you want to return the 5 values, right? 5 values put into the given sequence, right? Separated by the comma. And once that value is available, on top of it, you can use some split function. That you can use a split function to create the single variable into the 5 variables. Single variable into 5 variables. For example, in my input, right, in my, for example, parameter, I will use source rows, comma, target rows, comma, your duration. Your source input path. Target path. Example. You want to return these 5 values, right? You want to return these 5 values. Concatenate these 5 values. Once that value is available, right? Once that value is available, then you can execute your split function. You can execute your split function. You can come up with some sub-str or index function to split your logic. Right? To split your logic. The first variable is equivalent to source rows. The last variable is equivalent to your target path. Then this is your target rows, duration, source input path, and target. But these 5 values, again, you should write the data into the 5 columns, right, in the Azure SQL DB. But you can split that information. But exit will return only one value. Exit will return only one value. You can come up with proper SQL logics or your data factory functions to split your single variable into 5 variables. Or from the, depends on your logic. You want to split before writing into the Azure SQL DB. You want to send 5 values as a parameters to Azure SQL DB. Then you have to split before executing a stored procedure. Now let me send only one value from the stored procedure from the SQL side. I will split the logic. Right? Depends on your calculations. Depends on your calculations. Yeah, if you don't have any doubts, we'll close. Tomorrow, I will discuss about the Spark architecture. Okay. We have one more utilities pending, that is especially the key vault one that we will discuss. Tomorrow, we'll discuss about that Spark. Okay.
Will it
But
be
please,
tomorrow or day after tomorrow, Sumit?
tomorrow we'll connect.
Okay, but Jagdish told tomorrow you are not taking the class.
Mostly, in case if I'm not available, I will let you know.
Okay.
Otherwise, I will take at least 1 hour class. I will see if possible. Maybe 7 to 8 if I'm possible. I will take 1 hour session. At least
Sure,
we will
sure.
discuss Spark architecture. 90% I will take, but 10% I will let you know. He has covered it. The data warehousing architecture he has covered it. I mean, not architecture, data warehousing concept he has covered it. 2 sessions.
Yes.
All things completed. Right? See type 1, type 2, type 3, all the dimensions and facts.
That is pending, sir. Slide 3 is pending, sir. So slide 1 and 2 I have completed.
Anyway, tomorrow I will take the. We'll see. The first hour I will take the Spark architecture. In the next 30 minutes, you can take the data warehousing architecture. Okay. The third
Sure,
slide.
sir. Sure, sir.
Okay. But please practice the utilities. These are 100% tree questions, but 100% will use these commands in the real time. Please let me know. In case if you have any doubts, please let me know.
This mounting and all done by admin, huh?
You know, it depends, right? I said it depends. I mean, 80% by admin, 20% by data engineers. But these are easy steps, right? I mean,
Yes.
only we should follow, especially the steps, right? But admin will help out to provide the SPN details, right? For example, in your project, so they are requesting you to set up that mount point, right? We should not say this is admin activity, I will not create, right? So these steps are very easy, right? Only you need admin help to provide this client ID and this credentials. You need admin help, right, to provide the access between your application and data lake, right? Right, Navin?
Yes. Yes.
Only these 2 activities will be done by admin. The rest of things I can execute, right? Once, for example, you will ask to the Jagdish, for example, admin, you will ask to Jagdish, could you please create one SPN? We want to set up that mount point, right? Please create one app register, go and create one application. That application, please go and provide the access to the data. You should provide the details, right? Okay, we are accessing this ADLS. Please
Okay.
create one application. That application, please provide that full access to this so and so folder, right? What is the here folder, right? Where is the folder? Maybe AIC, right? So
Yes.
this AIC is a root folder, right? Please provide that full access to this AIC folder or maybe some XYZ folder. Jagdish, what he will do, he will create one SPN. He'll provide that access. The next you should ask, could you please provide that SPN details? So we'll set up that mount point in the Databricks. Then he will ask, what kind of information you're expecting. Please provide your client ID, the credential, plus this refresh URL. In case if you don't have access to your Azure Active Directory, right? 99.9% you will not get access to your Azure Active Directory. Then you will ask, you will request your Jagdish to provide the complete this authentication to token from the endpoint. Right. You will request to Jagdish, please provide these details. Maybe he'll ask, could you please list out the steps, right? Maybe you will set up that call, go to Active Directory, click on app registration, select that endpoint, please provide this authentication to token. Right. Anyway, this he will provide the client and credentials.
Mhm.
Once he provided access to data lake, we can execute these three steps, right?
Yes.
In case if you don't have these details, it's very hard, right? No way to execute these three steps, right? There is no way to create that mount point, right?
Yes.
Right, Naveen. Again, you should ask one more question. So why should I expose this credentials in the notebook? We should not expose, right? Right? Because you're exposing to everyone, right? Right, Suresh? This is wrong, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
This is wrong, right, Suresh? Because you're providing the password details to each and every developer. Right? Indirectly, you're exposing these details to everyone, right? Because all the users are having the access to this workspace, right? Everyone can view the details, right?
Yes.
But this is not a best practices, right? But for example, if someone will do that auditing, but each and every project, someone will do that auditing, right? Definitely he will raise a concern, right? Why you're exposing this credential details to everyone, right? It should be invisible, right? Right, Suresh?
Yes, Sumant.
Password always it should be invisible. Then we'll use the secrets concepts. The fourth utility, right? Secrets. Right, at that time we'll use the secrets. If you're using the secrets, right, you should store these details in your key vault. If I'm
Okay.
storing these details in that key vault, now everything is invisible, right, Suresh? Right. What is your
Yes.
next activity? From the Databricks, you should connect it to the key vault. From the key vault, you should extract that information. That is called secrets concept. dbtools.secrets. dbtools.secrets means here we should explicitly create one scope. We'll discuss in detail, but actually in the real time we should not expose these details. You should inform to your platform team, please create one key vault and the secrets, right? Please create one secrets in that Azure key vault. Please save the details, right? Once these details are saved into the key vault, you should extract these details from with the help of your secrets concept. We have that fourth utility, that is dbtools.secrets. Right? With the help of the dbtools.secrets, we can read the details. But unfortunately, so this community Databricks, right? Community Databricks, we don't have options to read the data from your key vault. But I will explain the steps how to set up the, especially the secrets and scopes. Right? We can create, but we can create the steps, but in especially that Azure Databricks, unfortunately we don't have option to create the. We unfortunately we don't have option to run the code, right? But I will explain you. I will walk through the steps how to create the, especially secrets, how to create the scope. That's also interview question. But in the community Databricks, right? Community Databricks, we don't have option to communicate with your Azure Key Vault because this is not collaborative with your Azure services, right? So this is a standalone your cloud Databricks, right? Not Azure Databricks. But in the real time, right? We should not expose the details. In case someone expose the details, you should highlight, right? You should inform to the your other developers, right? Please use that keyword concept. If it is Azure Databricks, we should use that keyword concept, but we should follow the one more additional step, right? That is called scope concept. That is called scope. We'll discuss. Okay. So this clear, right?
Yes.
But definitely he will ask, for example, you mentioned the configuration here, we should provide the client ID, credential refresh. Definitely immediately he will ask the questions. Okay, are you exposing your password details or your secret details in your notebook? No, we are not exposing. Here we are using dbutils.secrets.get your scope name and your key name. We'll use one more command here. Instead of this highlighted one, right? Highlighted one, we'll use dbutils.secrets.get your scope name, comma, secret name. We'll use one line command. Right, that one line command, it will extract the secret from your Azure keyword. At that time, your code, everything is invisible. You're hiding your path. You're not exposing. You're not even this refresh URL also you can extract from your keyword. Your client ID also you can extract from that keyword. Our entire configurations also you can extract from your keyword. In case if you don't want to expose the details, right? We'll use that keyword concept. Clear, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we'll connect tomorrow. Okay, I will let you know. In case if I'm not available, I will let you know. But please do the practice. But please don't postpone. But please do the practice and finish today only. But from tomorrow onwards, because you will see the especially a real code, right? Again, we'll not discuss about this. What is that mount point? Directly, I will use that mount point URL. I will read that. Again, don't ask why you're using /mnt ADLS, right? Why you're using especially the file system commands, why you're listing out the files with dbl.fs.ls. Please do the practice, okay? Please do the practice. That utilities are very, very important. But 20 percentage you'll use the Databricks utilities, entire 100 percentage code, right? 20 percentage you'll use your Databricks utilities, remaining 80 percentage your main code. Main code means the reading and writing in between transformations. Okay, yeah, we'll connect tomorrow. Thanks everyone. Bye.